The bulldozer's guttural roar tore through the stillness of dawn, rattling the earth beneath my worn-out boots as I bolted across my backyard. My chest burned, heart slamming against my ribs like a caged animal desperate to break free. The sun had just crested the horizon, its golden light glinting off the machine's steel blade, a blade poised to carve into the land my family had fought, bled, and sweated over for 3 generations. "Stop!" I roared, my voice cracking with raw desperation, arms flailing like a man drowning in a sea of rage. The construction crew hesitated, their hard hats swiveling as they exchanged wary glances through the haze of diesel fumes. Then Margaret Sinclair, the HOA president, stepped out from the shadow of the beast, her smirk slicing through the morning air sharper than any knife. She clutched a clipboard like a shield of absolute authority, her posture radiating the smug confidence of someone who thought she'd already won. "Too late, Alex," she said, her voice smooth as silk but dripping with venom. "The board approved this project last night. It's over." "Too late? Not in a million years." They thought they could bulldoze my family's legacy with a single vote and a wave of her manicured hand? They had no idea the hell I was about to rain down on them. Let me take you back to the beginning, how this war started and how I turned their own arrogance into the weapon that brought them crashing down. If you're the kind of person who roots for the underdog, who loves seeing justice served with a side of grit, then stick around. Hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, and buckle up. This one's for you. It all kicked off on a dreary Tuesday morning, the kind where the sky hangs low and heavy, threatening rain that never quite falls. I trudged out to the mailbox in my flannel shirt, the chill biting in my knuckles as I sifted through the usual pile of bills and grocery flyers. Then I saw it, a crisp white envelope with the HOA's logo stamped in the corner, the sight alone enough to twist my stomach into a knot. I ripped it open right there on the porch, the paper crinkling under my calloused fingers, and the words inside hit me like a freight train. After a comprehensive review of community boundaries, the back acre of your property has been reclassified as common land. This adjustment aligns with updated surveys and is fully authorized under HOA bylaws. I stare at the page, my hands trembling so hard the ink seemed to dance. I read it again, then a third time, each sentence sinking deeper into my gut like a lead weight. This wasn't just some random stretch of dirt they were claiming. This was the acre my granddad tamed with his bare hands, where he'd planted corn and potatoes to keep his family alive during the Depression. It was where my dad taught me to fish in the creek that once bubbled through it, where I'd poured 15 years of tax payments, every dime scraped together from long hours and short sleep, without ever missing a beat. And now, with a few typed lines and a fancy letterhead, they thought they could snatch it away. I crumpled the paper in my fist, my breath coming in short, ragged bursts. This wasn't a mistake or a mix-up. It was theft, pure and simple, dressed up in the HOA's favorite costume, bureaucracy. They thought I'd shrug, sign off, and slink away. They didn't know Alex Harper. Not one damn bit. I stormed across the neighborhood to Margaret Sinclair's house, my boots pounding the asphalt like a war march. Her place was a shrine to perfection, lawn mowed to a razor's edge, white picket fence gleaming like it had been polished, rose bushes blooming in neat rows like they'd been ordered to stand at attention. The air carried the faint scent of fresh mulch and her signature lavender perfume, a nauseating reminder of her obsession with control. My shoes crunched against her pristine gravel walkway, each step grinding my anger into something molten, something unstoppable. I hammered on her door, 3 sharp knocks that echoed like gunshots. She answered after a moment, and I caught the flicker of irritation in her hazel eyes before she plastered on that polished, crocodile tear smile. She was decked out in high-end workout gear, black leggings hugging her legs, a fitted tank top showing off her runner's frame, hair swept into a flawless ponytail. She looked like she'd just breezed in from a casual jog, completely unruffled, as if she hadn't just tried to gut me with a pen stroke. "Can I help you, Alex?" she asked, tilting her head with a smirk that screamed she was already 3 steps ahead. I shoved the crumpled letter at her, my voice tight as a coiled spring. This says you're taking my land. Tell me it's a mistake, Margaret. Her smile didn't budge, but her eyes gleamed with something dark, almost predatory. No mistake here. Our professional survey uncovered discrepancies with your grandfather's old hand-drawn maps. Charming, but outdated. The board voted unanimously last night to correct the boundaries. Without telling me, I snapped, stepping closer, my fists clenching until my knuckles popped. She sighed, a theatrical little puff of air, like I was a child interrupting her busy day. The HOA bylaws don't require individual notifications for property adjustments, Alex. We found a lovely clause about community asset reallocation. It gives us full authority to realign boundaries when historical records don't match modern data. We're building a resort-style pool back there. It'll boost property values for the whole neighborhood, even yours. You should be grateful. Grateful, I growl, my voice rising. I've paid taxes on that land for 15 years, every penny, every year. You can't just steal it and call it a favor. She let out a soft, infuriating chuckle, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Stealing's such a strong word, don't you think? We prefer reallocating resources for the greater good. It's progress, Alex. You'll see. Before I could unload the tirade clawing up my throat, a blast of music erupted from next door, some overplayed pop song thumping through the air. I glanced over the fence and saw Tyler and Samantha Morgan, my neighbors and HOA board members, lounging by their brand-new pool. The water shimmered under the weak morning light, and the edge of their concrete deck looked way too close to where my property line should have been. My stomach churned, a cold realization sinking in. They were part of this. I could feel it in my bones. Their laughter floated over, carefree and smug. But when their eyes flicked my way, I caught it, a twitch of unease, a shadow of guilt. They knew. They'd been in on it from a jump. I turned back to Margaret, my voice low and dangerous. This isn't over. Her smirk widened. Oh, I think it is. Sleep was a pipe dream that night. I hauled a battered cardboard box of my granddad's old records down from the attic, the air thick with dust and the ghosts of yesteryear. I spread them across the kitchen table, yellowed maps curling at the edges, deeds stamped with faded notary seals, notes scrawled in his meticulous hand. The dim light of the overhead bulb cast long shadows as my fingers traced the brittle pages, my mind racing for a lifeline. Granddad was a man who never left a detail unchecked, and buried in his spidery handwriting was a glimmer of hope, a reference to county survey markers set in 1952. Boundary markers are permanent, immutable, etched in iron. Even if rivers shift, trees fall, or time tries to bury them. If those markers were still out there, I had proof, cold, hard proof, that the HOA's updated survey was a sham, a calculated land grab masquerading as community improvement. I snatched my phone off the counter and dialed Ben Carter, an old family friend and retired surveyor, not giving a damn that the clock read 11:53 p.m. Alex. His voice was gravelly, thick with sleep. What's wrong? They're stealing my land, Ben, I said, the words spilling out in a rush. The HOA's trying to take my back acre, my granddad's acre. I need you. A long pause, then the creak of springs as he sat up. Meet me at sunrise. Bring every scrap of paper you've got. We'll figure this out. The HOA planned to break ground in 5 days. Time was a luxury I didn't have, but I'd use every ticking second to build a trap they'd never see coming. Ben rolled up at dawn in his beat-up Ford pickup, the engine coughing as he parked. He climbed out, toolbox rattling in the bed, his weathered face set with the kind of quiet determination I'd always admired. We hit the back, acre armed with his gear, metal detector, measuring tape, granddad's maps, and a fire in our bellies that burned hotter than the rising sun. The grass was slick with dew, crunching under our boots as we combed the land. Neighbors peeked from their porches, sipping coffee and muttering behind their hands, their curiosity a low buzz I tuned out. Hours dragged on, the sun climbing higher, baking the sweat into our shirts. My back screamed from bending over, my hands blistered and raw from clawing through dirt and tangled roots. Ben's detector stayed silent, and doubt started gnawing at me like a hungry dog. What if the markers were gone? What if time had erased my only shot? Maybe we're chasing ghosts, I muttered, wiping my brow as I kicked at a stubborn clump of soil, frustration bubbling up. Ben tugged his faded cap lower, his gray eyes steady. Your granddad wasn't a man to get this wrong, Alex. Those markers are here. I'd bet my last dime on it. We keep going. I sighed, my shoulders slumping, ready to call a bust. Then beep. The detector shrieked near the old oak tree, its gnarled branches stretching over the land like a guardian from another era. My heart leapt into my throat, a jolt of adrenaline surging through me. Ben dropped to his knees, scraping away layers of earth with his trowel, and I joined him, dirt caking under my nails as we dug like men possessed. A glint of rusted metal peeked through the soil. A 1952 survey marker, battered but intact, right where Granddad's map said it'd be. Holy hell! I breathed, the weight of it slamming into me like a tidal wave. This was it, proof, solid as the oak above us, undeniable and real. Ben ran his tape measure from the marker, his face darkening as he calculated. Alex, this says your land stretches 50 feet farther east than they're claiming. I followed his gaze, my pulse quickening, right into the Morgan's pool. He nodded, his jaw tight. And if we find the others, the HOA's whole story collapses like a house of cards. We tore through the rest of the day, sweat stinging our eyes, hands bleeding from the rough work. The sun was dipping low, painting the sky in streaks of orange and pink, when we uncovered 3 more markers, each one a nail in the HOA's coffin, proving my property was bigger than I'd ever dreamed. The sheer scale of their lie left me reeling, but Ben wasn't finished. He pulled a faded geological report from his satchel, squinting at the fine print under the dying light. This ridge, he said, his voice dropping low and serious, was flagged as a potential archaeological site back in the 40s. Native American artifacts were logged here, pottery, tools, the works. I froze, my breath catching. Granddad used to spin tales about finding arrowheads and clay shards when he was a kid, stories I'd laughed off as old man ramblings over beers on the porch. What they weren't just stories. Ben grabbed his trowel and started probing a quiet corner of the lot, a patch of earth untouched by years of neglect. Minutes ticked by, the silence heavy between us, until he sucked in a sharp breath and held up a small, chipped stone arrowhead. Its edges were worn, but its weight in his palm was monumental. If we can verify this, he said, locking eyes with me, you could slap a historical preservation order on this land. Lock it down tight. No bulldozers. No resort pool. No nothing, ever. I glanced toward Margaret's house, picturing her sipping wine with her cronies, toasting their victory over me. My fists clenched, nails digging into my palms until I felt the sting. This wasn't just about property lines anymore. It was about my granddad's calloused hands, my dad's quiet pride, the legacy they'd left me to defend. They thought they'd buried me under their rules. They were about to choke on their own hubris. That night, I sat at my desk under the flicker of a desk lamp, filing an emergency historical preservation request with the state, an ironclad order that froze all development dead in its tracks. Then I picked up the phone and dialed a local news station, dropping an anonymous tip with just enough meat to get their bloodhounds sniffing. If Margaret wanted a war, I'd make sure the whole damn county had ringside seats to watch her fall. By morning, the contractors rolled in, their trucks rumbling like an invading army. Margaret strutted ahead, barking orders as they sprayed bright orange paint over my markers, oblivious to the bomb ticking beneath their feet. I leaned against my shed, arms crossed, the cool metal wall pressing into my back as adrenaline buzzed through me like a live wire. My security camera hummed quietly, catching every move they made. Tyler Morgan wandered over a few minutes later, hands stuffed in his pockets, a nervous grin plastered across his sunburned face. Hey, Alex, no hard feelings about all this, right? It's just business, community stuff, you know? I let the silence stretch, watching him squirm, then pulled a folded survey from my back pocket, unfolding it with deliberate slowness. You know your pool's 12 feet over my legal property line? His grin vanished, his face draining of color like someone had pulled a plug. That can't be right. See for yourself, I said, pressing the 1952 county map into his sweaty, shaking hands. He snatched it, eyes darting over the lines, his jaw clenching so hard I thought his teeth might crack. I need to make a call, he stammered, practically tripping over his own feet as he bolted back to his house, the survey flapping in his grip. My phone buzzed 5 minutes later. Margaret's name flashed on the screen. I let it ring twice before picking up, savoring the moment. "Alex," she purred, her voice dripping with forced charm, thick as honey and twice as fake. "I hear you've got some concerns about the community project. Why don't we sit down, just the two of us, and work this out? No need for things to get messy. I'd rather air out at the HOA meeting." I cut in my tone flat and final, where everyone can hear the truth. A long, brittle pause hung between us, then a sharp hiss of breath. "Are you threatening me?" "Nope," I said, glancing at my security footage, a grin tugging at my lips. "Just following proper procedure. You're big on that, right?" The emergency HOA meeting was a powder keg begging for a match. The community center buzzed with tension, neighbors packed into folding chairs, their whispers a low hum of anticipation. I walked in with my arsenal, maps, photos of the markers, the arrowhead in a Ziploc bag, a state letter confirming the historical review, and laid it out like a prosecutor at a murder trial. The room gasped as I peeled back the layers. The fake survey, the land grab, the proof my acre was mine, and then some. Then I dropped the kill shot. Property records showing Margaret and her husband owned a private development company poised to rake in millions if the resort went through. A glossy brochure from their website, complete with artist renderings of luxury condos, sealed the deal. "Is this true, Margaret?" a board member demanded, his voice trembling, face pale as a ghost. She floundered, clutching her clipboard like a lifeline, her polish cracking under the spotlight. "It's a personal investment, nothing more. All perfectly legal." The crowd erupted, a tidal wave of outrage crashing over her. Neighbors who'd once kissed her ring turned feral, shouting over each other. One waved a stack of HOA financials, his voice booming. "You funneled our dues into your community planning research. Tens of thousands of dollars. That's fraud, Margaret." Her composure shattered, her fingers white-knuckling her papers as sweat beaded on her forehead. "It's a misunderstanding," she cried, her voice shrill. "I was raising property values for all of you." Another resident leapt up, jabbing a finger at her. "And those permits, you pushed them through before the reclassification even hit the agenda. How'd you know it was coming, huh? Inside job." Her husband tried to slink out the back, his suit jacket flapping as he edged toward the exit, but a burly neighbor in a flannel shirt blocked the door, arms crossed. "Not today, pal. You're staying for this." By the end of the night, Margaret was voted out in a landslide, the project scrapped, and new rules were rammed through demanding community votes on any land changes. Lawsuits piled up like leaves in fall as her shady investor buddies got dragged into the spotlight. Within a month, she sold her house under the cover of night and vanished, her name a curse on every tongue in the neighborhood. Today, my land stands untouchable, locked down under historical preservation laws, a fortress of dirt and memory no one can breach. The HOA crumbled and rebuilt itself, forced into transparency by neighbors who'd finally found their backbone. I didn't just save my acre. I became a symbol, a warning carve in the earth. Don't mess with what's ours. Lessons learned from the story. This battle wasn't just about dirt and survey markers. It was a masterclass in resilience, roots, and fighting for what's right. The first lesson here is simple but powerful. Never let anyone walk over what's yours without a fight. Alex didn't roll over when the HOA came knocking. He dug in, literally and figuratively, proving that standing up to bullies, whether they're in suits or hard hats, starts with knowing your worth. Second, history matters. Those old maps and arrowheads weren't just relics. They were weapons, reminders that the past can anchor us when the present tries to sweep us away. And finally, truth has a way of rising to the surface. No matter how slick Margaret's lies were, the evidence, buried under years of soil, spoke louder than her clipboard ever could. It's a gut check for all of us. Hold tight to what you value, because the moment you let go, someone's waiting to snatch it. Meaningful message conveyed. At its core, this story screams one thing. Your legacy is worth defending. It's about more than property lines. It's about the sweat, love, and dreams stitched into the land we call home. For Alex, that acre wasn't just real estate. It was his granddad's grit, his dad's lessons, a piece of himself he'd never trade for a fancy pool or a bumped-up property value. The message hits hard for anyone who's ever felt the ground shift under them, whether it's a greedy HOA, a shady boss, or a system rigged to favor the powerful. It says you don't have to bow to corruption. You can fight it, expose it, and win. And when you do, you're not just saving yourself. You're lighting a torch for everyone else who's been wronged. It's a rallying cry. Protect what's yours, because no one else will. Personal perspective on the story. Look, I'll be real with you. This story gets me fired up. There's something primal about watching Alex take on Margaret and her cronies, turning their smug little scheme into a pile of rubble. I love how it flips the script. The underdog doesn't just survive. He thrives, leaving the so-called winners scrambling to save face. To me, it's a reminder of why we tell these stories, because they're not just entertainment, they're fuel. They show us what's possible when you refuse to back down, when you lean on the past to push forward. I've seen too many folks lose what matters to slick-talking power grabs. And seeing Alex turn the tables? That's the kind of justice that makes you want to cheer. It's personal, it's messy, and it's damn satisfying. Proof that one person with guts and a shovel can topple a whole empire of lies. If this tale of grit, guts, and glory got your blood pumping, then you're in the right place. Over on Story Precious, we're all about unearthing stories like this, raw, real, and packed with heart. From epic showdowns to quiet triumphs, we've got a treasure trove of videos waiting to inspire you, make you laugh, or maybe even spark your next fight for what's right. Don't miss out. Hit that subscribe button now and ring the bell so you're first in line for every new release. Join our crew, share your own stories in the comments, and let's keep the fire alive together. Story Precious is where the good stuff lives. See you there.